So this is probably the fourth or fifth time I have started the narration for this video, and honestly, it's just difficult. Today, I wanted to show you how I processed some grief, but also thought of some happy memories about one of my absolute favorite people in the world, one of the most influential people that I've had in my life, and who was my safety net and support system growing up. And that was my grandmother. She was born on June 22nd in 1938 in Paris, France, and so we call her Mémé. And she passed away on September 27th, 2017, quite unexpectedly and violently of an aneurysm. So if you recall in my first video, I actually talk about how we were approaching a time in which the anniversary of some terrible things was coming up, and this is one of those things. And as we were approaching, or I was approaching this date, Mémé has just really been on my mind. So I decided that I would grieve, or allow myself to grieve a little through art, but also honor her memory, in addition to doing things that just made me think of her even more. So I put some pink Dina Wakley gloss sprays down on this page. And the reason for that is because she always wore pink lipstick. And even though she really didn't wear bright colors, she always had on pink lipstick. And now I am taking this stencil from Stencil Girl Products that reminds me very much of almost like a fleur-de-lis. So again, I mentioned she was born in Paris, France. So I was really going for a French theme here. And she was also a florist for a good number of years after my grandfather passed away. So anything that was floral also made me think of her. So I am just using this time to think about my fond memories of her. I actually have some Edith Piaf playing in the background while I'm doing this. For those who don't know, Edith Piaf is a French singer from, I don't know, the 1920s, 30s maybe. Her name translates into Little Sparrow, and she was just this tiny little woman with an incredible voice who had a lot of tragedy in her life. And I actually think they may have made a movie about her in the early 2000s. But Mémé loved her, and so I have very fond memories of spending Saturdays and Sundays with her on the weekend, her cleaning the house, and she was either playing opera, which I really didn't like, some classical music, or Edith Piaf. So I put on some Edith Piaf in the background and really just let myself feel and put some emotions out. I am adding some black into my art here, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is just artistically, it's a contrast to the pink, but two, I was also grieving. Now that I have some paint down, I decided I wanted to add some collage elements with tissue paper, and I am using some Tim Holtz, I think Botanicals, tissue paper with some gel medium, and just breaking it apart and sticking it down. Again, there was a floral element here, and I really just wanted to bring the florals into this piece as much as possible. Not only was she a florist, but she did really very much enjoy her garden, and I have fond memories of buying her hanging baskets for Mother's Day and her birthday, and just she had roses that she tended to, and just she really enjoyed flowers. So I'm just really trying to bring that forward. And ironically, the pink tissue paper that you see in here putting down is like the really thick paper that comes with a bouquet. I have been saving those because I like to have flowers around. And I thought, perfect. Not only is it pink, which I have a lot of pink going on here, but it also comes from a bouquet. So it just fit into the theme pretty nicely. I'm curious to hear from you guys in the comments below what objects or scents or activities that you come across or do make you think of loved ones and how you honor their memory. So please let me know in the comments below. It may help somebody else process their own grief. So as I mentioned before, Mimi was actually born in Paris, France. She described that they lived not too far from Notre Dame. And so therefore I had to put the iconic Eiffel Tower on this page. And she used to talk to me about how the Eiffel Tower has a lot of mixed feelings from locals because it was not original to the landscape. And it's just iconic. So I really just wanted to include the Eiffel Tower. So if anybody were going through my journal, like, you would very much know that this was about France, my grandmother, and just her origins. And speaking of her origins, she was actually born during German-occupied World War II France. She was a part of a bombing incident in which shrapnel went through her leg, and she had a pretty radical surgery to correct well, not really correct it, but remove the infection, which went all the way to her bones. So she actually didn't even have her own bone. She had pieces of like cadaver bone and lamb bone or something, which was just really incredible to think about in the late 1930s, especially during German-occupied France. She was then in a cast from like the hip down, and she described this story where she was out and about, and I don't know why, but a German soldier took pity on her and gave her a kitten. And she was so excited that she wanted to bring the soldier home to meet her parents. And that was not a good idea. She had brothers hiding in their attic who were escaped from like war camps. I don't know if they were in concentration camps, but needless to say, her parents decided it was probably not a good idea for her to stay there, that it was time that she went to Switzerland. My great-grandfather was actually German-Swiss, so she went to go stay with some relatives in Switzerland, and therefore she had a very thick German accent compared to like maybe a traditional French accent. German was more or less her first language. And when she came back after the war, she actually got teased and bullied from the kids at school because she only spoke German. You can see again, I am adding some florals, stenciling into the background after not being very happy with how I was going to place the Eiffel Tower on here. I was going through some different ephemera and I made a complete mess, to be honest, of my studio desk because I just did not know how I wanted to create the focal image with this and complete this piece. Honestly, I wanted it to be perfect and not only represent my love for Mimi and the grief that I have for her, but just also her memory. And, I really just wanted this to be perfect. So here you can see I am using some distress inks from Tim Holtz to just kind of add a little bit of color to the very edge of the Eiffel Tower. Really, I am just killing time while I'm trying to think about how do I want to pop this from the background. And you see here that I'm bringing the black in with a brayer, and I just decide, like, I really needed some dark contrast. So I'm actually covering up a lot of what I had in the background and then picking some of that back up with a baby wipe and stencil. Again, the stencil is from Stencil Girl Products. And I really liked how the black was enough contrast against the Eiffel Tower, but I did still want to see some of that pattern below, so I brought out the floral stencil again with the baby wipe to kind of do a ghosting effect. The black, again, this is very much a mix of love and memories and grief, and I'm just really trying to portray that out here on the page. And I did have some stamps that had a French theme to them, so I'm just pulling some of those out and adding them in the background just to add some texture And if you just look closely, you'll just see some words. So a couple of them talk about a garden. Some of them are just, again, that kind of fleur-de-lis pattern. And you see, I just keep bringing the Eiffel Tower back to see if I like how it is contrasting against the background. Losing Mimi was like losing a limb that I didn't even know existed. She had been the biggest cheerleader and support, and honestly, just my safety net and sanctuary growing up. And words just can't describe what her loss felt like, especially when I was going through this liver disease problem, and just like I just really wanted her in the moment. But I have so many things to be thankful for when it comes to Mimi. And when I think of her, I'm obviously sad for having lost her, but so just like full of love and gratitude for the time I did get to spend with her and how close of a relationship we had. Mimi actually taught me how to crochet and do various crafts. We played a lot of board games together. We cooked together, baked together, we shared recipes. One of our favorite things to do was to go to Anderson's on Saturdays, sometimes Sundays. And Anderson's is unfortunately closed now. And interestingly, they closed the same year that she passed away, I believe, earlier that year. But Anderson's, that was just like this really cool, almost like a farmer's market and specialty goods department store local to my hometown, and they've branched out into a few other places in Ohio. And unfortunately, they had to close. Apparently, the grocery stores just were not making money. But they always had all of these amazing samples, and we would just go there. I mean, we would buy produce and whatnot. It was our favorite place to buy produce, but we would go with my mom, my sister, and Mimi, and just eat samples and try new things and just have a lovely time. Mimi never drove, so we always saw her on Saturdays when my grandfather was alive, and then on Sundays after he passed. But it was pretty much a tradition every single weekend growing up. And even into college, I tried to get there as much as possible and see her once a week. And we talked to each other every single day. When I was in grad school, I'm trying to think. I had a cell phone in undergrad, but I didn't really use it. But when I actually went away for school when I was in grad school, and would talk to her all the time on the phone. And then when I entered into my professional career, calling her when I got off work and talking to her on my way home just became a tradition, and I looked forward to that time every day. And one of the most amazing things is the few weeks before she had passed, I was still calling her, but we weren't talking as long on the phone. It was maybe only 10 minutes, 5 minutes. My cousin was living with her and had just had a baby. And, they had developed this lovely bond between, her great-grandson and herself. So in the evenings when he would come home, she would just spend a lot of time with him. So our conversations, needless to say, our conversations were cut a little short. Well, it just so happens the day that she passed away, I ended up talking to her on the phone for, I think, like 45 minutes to an hour. And I reflect on that now, that I got that time with her that day. And, whether there is a God, the universe, whatever it may be, something was put in our path to make that connection that day and have that last phone call. So after all that fussing of trying to find the perfect focal image to go with the Eiffel Tower, I ended up grabbing one of my favorite photos, and includes multiple generations of women, my grandmother, my cousins, my mom, and myself. And the phrase, it's a French phrase, tu me, and I'm gonna butcher it, tu me manque, but I miss you. Um, and so this is my page. This is how I chose to honor her, and I really like how it turned out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share with your friends. Thank you. Non, je ne regrette rien.